Okay. Okay. So, hey, good luck to everybody here. Thanks to the SAE team for putting on an awesome event. My name is Rob Sladen. I'm co-founder, CEO of Zulu Pods. This is Todd Currier, a co-founder and chief scientific officer here at Zulu Pods. We are on a mission to radically simplify mechanical systems architecture. Our pod technology improves performance, durability, survivability for next generation mechanical systems and the next generation of military assets and weaponry. Zulu Pods was born, the Tide Pod for the jet engine was born in July of 2020. Shout out to my wife here, Daniela Sladen, another co-founder. Daniela and myself spent a lot of time at Pratt & Whitney, getting our hands dirty and oily, working on mechanical systems, lubrication system design for jet engines. We were on a car ride to Orlando. My son and daughter, 2 and 3 at the time, were asleep in the back seat, and we finally got some quiet time to talk. And because we're both engineers, you know, we tend to talk about weird things, like mini jet engines that power drones and missiles. And we saw an opportunity where there was an opportunity to improve the mechanical system and lubrication system design of those engines. Think about those engines like your car, if your car only had to drive for a mile. These things only, you know, because they're powering missiles and drones, they go for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour. Your car that would drive for a mile, we would design it very differently than your car today. And so by putting oil in a pod, we were able to get rid of the rest of the lubrication system, things like tanks and tubes, and Todd will get a little more into how it works, but we were able to radically reduce the cost, complexity of those engines. Along this journey, what has also happened, and we're now under contract with the Army, we've recognized in the market, said, hey, this is a really good backup system for emergency lubrication type of instances in the sky. Think about like these sprinklers in this building, they go off when they need to go off. Our pods are able to go off when there's a loss of oil event in the sky. And things like helicopters, single engine, fixed wing fighters, that's a big deal. We realized though we needed to find a really special engineer to lead our engineering team to be able to bring this to the market. And so we started saying to ourselves, let's go try to find someone like Todd that we used to work with at Pratt & Whitney. And we did one better. We didn't just find a Todd, but we actually found Todd Currier, and he's going to take you through the rest of this presentation.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so as Rob mentioned, right, through the process of taking and simplifying mechanical systems, packaging oil, right, creating this decentralized lubrication system, we came to learn that there was a real opportunity to produce secondary lubrication systems. So in aerospace design for helicopters, these systems, right, they have a very difficult challenge of needing to operate in the event that the main oil system fails. And so when that happens, the pilot only has a matter of minutes to make decisions. So they have to decide what to do with the aircraft, and if they can't decide in that period of time where there isn't a successful way out, the aircraft will actually crash in a matter of minutes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the engineering designer, the team, what they're left with often in these cases is, well, when you talk about a secondary system, right, something that's additive, right, how badly do you need that system? And it's often a real challenge for the engineer to make the decision based solely on what is the likelihood of this event going to happen, or what is the cost, complexity, and weight, especially when we're talking in aerospace. And so in your traditional secondary lubrication system, right, that's what's shown on the left here, right? You have a tank, you have a pump, you've got coolers, you've got all these components that are then tied together with a complex network of tubing, right? That often doesn't buy its way onto the aircraft because it is just too complicated. So what Zulu Pods is set out to do is to radically simplify that design and radically simplify how that system operates. And the way that we do that is by taking all of the items that you see on the left and distilling that down to a single component, which is designed to hold exactly the right amount of lubrication that is required for the job, and placing it very close to the mechanical systems or the parts that need to be that critical fluid to prevent failure from occurring. And so we take and these things are self-energized, they're decentralized, right? So they can power themselves, they're independent of each other. We can put things like oil, fuel, grease, any fluid that you can think of, right, in these little pods. And then they will deliver that fluid independent of any centralized pump or centralized tank. And so what does that mean, right? So when we think about the implications of that, right, we have the centralized system, which is your traditional design, right? And something that we're all familiar with, right? These ear pods, right? When they first came out, they were designed to have this wire, and often, you know, you stuff that in the bottom of your bag and you pull out and it's in this tangled knot. Well, that's very similar to what the outside of a jet engine looks like, right? They have these external components that are typically centralized in nature. They have a single tank, a single pump, also a single point of failure, right? In the Zulu pod design, what we're looking at is we're taking and we're saying, we actually want to make these things self-contained, right? Like Rob said, this emergency sprinkler system, where they are designed to supply critical amounts of either coolant or lubricant to the mechanical system that it's designed for, and they can be placed anywhere within the aircraft, hard to reach places, and they can be used to alleviate some of the complexity and the challenge that the engineer has to face when deciding, is this too complicated? Does this weigh too much as a secondary system to save lives? And this problem is not a hypothetical problem, right? So this is a thing that has actually impacted people's lives, right? In this example here, this is actually a loss of lubrication event where the aircraft didn't have a secondary system, right? The engineers had to make the tough call to say this is too heavy, this is too complicated, it's too costly, and we're not going to add this to the system. And as a result of that, 17 people lost their lives. In the period of time that the pilot had to respond to this, from the moment that they first determined that the main lubrication system failed, was 11 minutes, right? So all of us who are going to be presenting today, right, we have a 10-minute presentation, right? So you know that feeling that you get when you're up here and you have to give that talk, right? And you need to think on your feet and answer those questions. That goes by in the blink of an eye. When you think about that in the context of being in the sky, right, and you have a blinking red light in your face that says you need to do something, and you got to figure out what that light is and then make a decision within 11 minutes to get to the ground, or else you will get there on, without that decision will be made for you, right? That is something that is critical and is the problem that Zulu Pods is focused on solving. And so to close, I'll leave you guys with a video of what Zulu Pod sees as the future for how these systems can operate, right? No longer does the designer have to make the decision between whether or not they need to include this system. It becomes a no-brainer. It's light, it's sleek, it's easy to install, easy to design, and it doesn't add weight to the system or complexity to the system in the way a full secondary system works. So here you can see a standard gear train. We're shown in gold are our Zulu pods, right? So we mentioned this idea of them being decentralized. This is an image of what that looks like, right? Each one of these pods are independent of each other. They live in spaces on the aircraft and in mechanical systems that already exist. We don't add weight or significant weight or complexity to that system. And we prevent loss of lubrication, right? When the main oil pressure is lost, in this case, we deliver very small amounts of lubricant, and we can provide the pilot with up to an hour of time, right? So the comparison here is a matter of minutes and an hour. That gives the pilot enough time to land the bird safely. And that's the mission of Zulu Pods, is to take and make these things simple, to make the design decision easy for the engineer, and to save lives in the future.
Sam is here with the microphone.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. One thing I usually, because I used to be in testing, was that system tested in real life?
Yeah, so that's a great question. As Rob mentioned, we are under contract with the Army now. We've actually done significant testing on this system. So, much of what we show here today, from an engineering standpoint, we'd call them cartoons, right? But these systems have actually been made and tested. So we've tested technology up to TRL level 5, and we are actively working with all of the major OEMs for driving this to TRL level 6, which for those in the audience, that's the Air Force's metric to determine how ready the technology is to go into an aircraft, right? So TRL level 6 is when you start installing them into the engine, right? So that's where we're at with the technology.
How are the pods activated?
So the pods are activated with a series of different mechanisms. All of them are patented mechanisms. For the loss of lubrication system, it can be an active system, right? So there's actually a signal that is sent to the pods that drives an activation. It's a solenoid system that is based. But we also have temperature-driven systems as well as vibration-driven systems as well. So we call them smart pods. They're actually fully integrated into the unit where they're capable of understanding the state of lubrication and then delivering lubricant based on the need.
Excellent presentation. I was curious, what percentage of crashes are due to the loss of lubrication? Do you have any idea on that?
That's a great question. Do you have an idea, Rob?
I don't have a statistical number, but it is one of those things where if it does happen, it's pretty much catastrophic. The Cougar incident is a good example. There's other ones, there's been other incidents over the last couple of decades where if you were to Google, you would see that it's a lubrication or mechanical system related event. On the engine side, there's 6 minutes. Today's standard is 6 minutes for loss of lubrication for the engine. The transmission, which lives more in the bird, is 30 minutes. But the Army looks at that 6 minutes and saying that's way too short. So statistically, don't really know that number, but it has happened, and when it does happen, it's bad news.
And it is enough of a problem that the Army is very interested in this, right? They're investing significant money into solving it.
Thanks for the presentation. I think it's easy for us to all see how military applications might be pushing the envelope in terms of performance. Have you looked at what potential commercial applications there could be for this technology?
We have.
Yep, go ahead, Rob.
We have. So one place that's very interesting is the wind turbine world. We brought on a business development consultant from GE Wind, and he's kind of bringing us around to some different owner-operators and some of the OEMs, but reliability, maintenance, lubrication-related things are a major issue around owner-operators not being able to run their wind turbines. So the short answer is yes, we're looking at, even in aerospace and defense, we're looking at the commercial or civilian side. We're also looking at where else can the technology go, where at the end of the day, it's all about preserving multi-million-dollar assets, right, and saving people's lives. And, in this case, we're very much talking about saving people's lives, but the wind turbine world is a great example of where we're trying to make sure a multi-million-dollar asset doesn't tear itself up, or allowing owner-operators to continue to run and, make power. So yeah, we are looking at other commercial applications.
Well, thank you very much.